The Atmanirbhar Bharat push will soon pop up on your smartphones. A recent report by the Reuters news agency says that the government has asked the phone manufacturers in India to make smartphones compatible with its indigenous navigation system NaVIC, also called Navigation with Indian Constellations. Hello and welcome to the Print Dashboard, our fortnightly adda where we navigate through the world of automobiles. And navigate we will today through maps, GPS and the ever-increasing dependability on navigation systems, be it cars or mobile phones. We have in our studios Sahil Mohan Gupta and Kushan Mitra. Sahil is a technology journalist based out of New Delhi and contributes regularly to The Print. Kushan has been tracking the Indian auto sector for over a decade now and writes a bi-weekly column for us. Welcome to The Print, Kushan and Sahil.
Thank you.
Because it's sort of very newsy, NaVIC, and this will change a lot of things in India's smartphone market. I would want to start with you, Sahil. Okay. What is NaVIC?
NaVIC is basically India's answer to GPS, GLONASS, Galileo, Baidu. These are all the four global positioning systems, and NaVIC, but is much more limited. There are right now 8 satellites. There's going to be one more that will go up, and 7 satellites are operational, and it only covers around 1,500 kilometers, basically India and some surrounding areas. So it is limited, and we have seen since 2020 a lot of smartphone makers have started adopting it. Actually, the support comes in from the chipset manufacturers like Qualcomm and MediaTek. So all the Qualcomm chips since 2020 now support NaVIC, and all the 5G enabled MediaTek chips support NaVIC. So post 2020, if you have bought a phone, Android phone, chances are you have NaVIC already.
So how is it that thing so meant for strategic purposes sort of trickles down in our smartphones?
I mean, like GPS is operated by the US Armed Forces, and GLONASS, which is Russia's standard, is operated by their armed forces. Like we've seen in times of war, particularly during the Iraq war, US cut off GPS access in Iraq, and there's this kind of anxiety, apprehension that like if the relationship with some of these countries deteriorates, India will lose access to the global positioning system or GLONASS for that matter. So that's why we wanted our own mapping solution.
But then why is it that it has sort of, because if we go through the Reuters report, we'll realize that there is a certain timeline that report sort of quotes, and which is not very far away from now. So why this urgency to implement a plan that was essentially meant for strategic sector to consumer durables like a phone?
I mean, firstly, I think there's been a clarification that's come out which says there's no specific timeline, because this is something that cannot be implemented overnight. Semiconductors take 2 to 3 years in their design. And of course, it was a smart move by ISRO to collaborate with Qualcomm and MediaTek particularly, because they serve the majority of the market. Like most phones, Xiaomi, Oppo, Vivo, Realme, all of these brands are basically Qualcomm based. Even the newer high-end Samsungs are based on Qualcomm's chips. MediaTek is now gathering speed in the mid-segment of the market. So all their 5G enabled chipsets have NaVIC support. But the problem will come with things like the iPhone or the Google Pixel, which uses Google's own Tensor processor. And even a lot of mid-range Samsung phones which use Samsung's own Exynos chips, and they use chips from other vendors like Unisoc. So problems will arise there, and that's why probably this clarification has come in, because a big chunk of these devices would not be, like they won't be able to sell these phones. And you can't imagine like the government like blocking the iPhone being launched in India because it doesn't have NaVIC support. And for Apple has been building its own modems for a while. They acquired Intel's modem business in 2019. So say like by 2025 or 26, it's expected to deploy its own modems on its on the iPhone. Right now it uses Qualcomm solution, but it's like it's not a full system on chip. So it's very unlikely that the iPhone will have NaVIC support anytime soon. But if you look at high-end smartphones on the Android side of things, most of them already have NaVIC.
So are we looking at a lot of churning vis-a-vis navigation system in India? Because these devices that show us the way are everywhere.
Yeah.
It's in your phones, it's in your cars, and maybe it's also on your tablets. Would it also change the game vis-a-vis in-car entertainment systems? That's for Kushan.
No, NaVIC won't really make a change. Probably get a bit more accuracy. GPS is still, I think, limited to 3 meters is the rule by the US Armed Forces, because you don't want to give super accurate data because GPS is also used by all the American Predator drones and for targeting terrorists. And at the end of the day, such hyper accurate information, geographical, geospatial information is military purposes, even though it's become standard. And it's a very interesting story how GPS was actually first adopted or first released to the public in 1982. If you recall, many of you won't, the Soviet Air Force shot down a Korean Airlines 747, flight 007. And ever since then, Ronald Reagan decided to open up GPS for aircraft navigation. Now, thanks to smartphones, and we were just discussing before the show how it's changed our lives, how navigation.
It's almost difficult to imagine a modern car without a navigation system.
Yeah, they have their own inbuilt navigation systems, and you have
Apple
CarPlay and Android Auto, which have Google Maps, which has traffic data. But you don't even need that. Even the newer cars like the Mahindra Scorpio, or even from Hyundai and Kia, have their own NaVi systems with traffic data enabled. We have very interesting, you just use your voice to navigate. There's a very interesting service I used recently in Mumbai called What 3 Words.
What 3 words, yeah.
Yeah, where you just say three words and it'll take you to a 3x3 square.
Basically, What 3 Words is basically bifurcated the entire planet into 3x3 blocks.
3 meter by 3 meter.
Yeah, and they're like 3 words, random 3 words.
Yeah. Well, we had some issues with the Scorpio L we are having because we were playing it through the Amazon Alexa app on the car. I thought I had decent elocution. Maybe it wasn't, but it's very good. So I don't even need to stop, pull over, or use. So What 3 Words makes giving directions on the move easier. It also will probably save you from sharing your phone number with somebody if you want delivery or a taxi guy. You just say, okay. It also works in many Indian languages such as Hindi and Bengali, Gujarati, Tamil, Telugu. So
I think more than 20 languages they support.
I think they have about 12 languages.
Okay.
As I met the team, they said 12 South Asian languages.
Okay.
And many other. Anyway, so it's everyday life now, right? You tell a taxi or you tell your delivery guy, I'll drop you a pin.
Yeah.
You don't need to worry anymore, right? It's changed our lives, whether it's, as I said, food delivery, e-commerce delivery, navigation.
But as you said, that it would not really impact the in-car infotainment systems, person navigation. But as Sahil mentioned, that this implementation would require hardware changes. I think that hardware change also, come into play with the cars?
It's manifold because, say, if you use Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, then basically you're using the phone's GPS or navigation stack. And if you are using an inbuilt system, then it's based on the chipset which the car manufacturer has already. Like, for example, the XUV 700 that uses Snapdragon for powering the infotainment system. So that would probably have something like NaVIC, but there are a lot of models.
So different cars have different systems, but
it's very fragmented.
Coming back to the cost part, what exactly do you think?
It won't be a big cost.
It would not be.
It won't be a big cost. The problem
Because
would
the
be
industry has given, again going back to that Reuters report, they are saying that they would not be comfortable before 2025, which is good 3 years away from now. And government is giving sort of, going by that report, some 4 months, 5 months of time, that sort of leverage. There's a huge difference between those two timelines. What explains that disparity?
I mean, firstly, again, there's already a clarification out there. It is just not feasible because semiconductors take some time, some lead time to get developed. It's not a cost factor, it's a development factor. How much time it will take these chipset manufacturers. Like, for example, Apple designs its own chipset, but it's manufactured by TSMC in Taiwan. So, similarly, Qualcomm works with Samsung. Samsung manufactures the chip. Google's Tensor is also done by Samsung. So once they bake in the design, it will take another 2 to 3 years for that design to come out in a real world product.
So that concern is real, you're saying?
It is real, but that's why they've released a clarification because they cannot implement it.
So they what they're saying is basically it will take,
Yeah.
even if the design is final today, the 2025 timeline. So if you have the iPhone 14 today, we'll have it on the iPhone 16 or 17 is as early as I guess we'll see. But I think Sahil was telling us before we started that, some of this stuff may have happened a year ago. So you never know that
these conversations have been happening.
Right. It's only now that we know.
Yeah. But because see, in 2018, NaVIC was ready. In fact, technically it was ready in 2011, but they started deploying it in 2018. But the phones that we saw with NaVIC only started coming in 2020. So there has been that, like even probably Qualcomm also took that lead time. The first phones were Qualcomm powered. I believe it was a Xiaomi phone that came out. I think we were still in lockdown.
In any which way, do you see any sort of a bump up for the local manufacturers?
No.
Right now, I mean, I have this data. I don't know how old is this, but it's fairly from 2021. I guess it says that Xiaomi, Samsung, they have a 38% market share, and Realme 16%. That takes us beyond the 50% mark. So for them, they'll be in a tight spot. Would it benefit the other Indian players if they are?
Xiaomi's phones are mostly Qualcomm powered. So anything that's launched post 2020, it will have NaVIC already. Samsung already now on the high end side, they have moved fully to Qualcomm. So some of the newer stuff that's come post 2021 will have NaVIC. The problem will happen for Samsung in the mid-range and the lower segments because those are not Qualcomm powered. Those are either Exynos, Unisoc. There are multiple semiconductor manufacturers they work with. Realme also mostly Qualcomm.
Well, that's very interesting because the government is also trying to make sure that the smartphone penetration reaches new heights. And if you're saying that that processor is only available in mid-range or high-range phones after that tweak, then that sort of puts things.
But there is another way NaVIC is going to get used, and that is through cell phone towers.
Yeah.
So keep in mind, it's not just the satellite that is sending a signal to your phone.
SOS.
You have every cell tower has its exact geographical coordinates down to I think 10 decimal points marked out. So when you come to 5G, if the government insists that every cell tower has a NaVIC receiver, which it can do, because and so your data on your phone, your location is not always calculated through GPS. For example,
combination.
Right now we are inside the studio, right, and you have shielding in the studio. You may not be able to get, because satellite signal is very, very, very weak. Very often data just picks up the cell phone and uses triangulation. And with 5G, triangulation will become
more precise.
Extremely precise. I'd say you'd probably be able to
3 to 4x better.
So I think with 5G you'll have I'll be able to say Anurag is sitting there and Kushan was sitting here, Sai was sitting here. So you'll probably get that. Right now 4G, we'll all be amorphous.
The other bit with NaVIC is that it can be used for SOS messaging. So already there's a deal with Oppo. Oppo has collaborated with ISRO to enable this SOS messaging. Like when you have the SOS feature, when you have no network, that usually happens through GPS. But this now NaVIC will enable that as well. So that will be another benefit to it. I feel on a broad level, it will basically make navigation a little more precise in India. But for the end user, it's not going to be a sea of change, not in terms of cost of product. It will not be a huge benefit to the manufacturers also.
So you think the policymakers have taken a calculated risk?
They want,
or
they want their own
calculated
technology.
move?
Yeah.
Because smartphone manufacturing is generating a lot of jobs in this country.
It's not just that, it's also once you have higher adoption,
Yeah.
right, the chipsets will become cheaper even for the defense sector.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, NaVIC was developed, I assume, for the defense sector above all else.
Yes.
And while I guess somebody like Snehesh can give us
Yeah.
more details on that, it's about defense. And but when the chipsets become extremely popular, extremely common, they become very cheap for everybody, even for India's defense
Economies of scale. But the other bit is like with NaVIC, this integration is happening on chipsets by Qualcomm, by MediaTek. Basically, all of these chipsets are not getting manufactured in India. They are getting manufactured in Taiwan and Korea. 99% of them. So for the Indian industry, it's not going to do much from that point of view unless we have a proper semiconductor fab which is able to manufacture chips at the highest nodes. And like TSMC is right now at 4 nanometer. Samsung is also at 4 nanometer. We don't see that.
What about the consumers?
Consumers, you'll just get more accurate GPS.
You'll get more accurate
that Google
because-
Maps will get a little more accurate.
So you'll be
That's
able to, you can possibly guide yourself to the exact point, when you're meeting somebody, maybe 2 feet more accurate. But also I think with the new semiconductor plant being set up by Vedanta and TSMC in Gujarat, you'll probably have, Foxconn, yes. You'll probably have much more accurate data there, and that'll be good, right? End of the day, we'll be making our own chipsets, which is a good thing. But yes, you will have to manufacture at 4 or 5 nanometers. The other thing with cars, and this is why you had the semiconductor shortage on cars, is that cars don't tend to use the latest 4 or 5 nanometer.
Yes.
So at one point of time when phones and laptops were
28, 30 nanometers.
when phones and laptops were running at 10 nanometers, cars were using 28 to 30.
Yeah.
And there was a fire, one in Taiwan, there was a fire in Malaysia.
Yeah.
So cars tend to use older, more stable chipsets because they're cheaper. Because, it's they're much, much cheaper.
There's more complexity there because with the pandemic, all these fabs were shut down, and what they decided to, the automakers said that they cancelled orders. So they said, okay, we are going to shut down these old fabs and we are going to upgrade them to the latest nodes. So that's what created that perfect storm where all of these chipsets weren't available.
So right now, automakers, I think, are running at 7-8 nanometers, even sub 10.
They are beyond 10 already. They're still beyond 10. The most advanced chip that you can get is basically the Tesla one, which is their full self-driving chip. That's 14.
But they're getting down. So what you're hearing from the BMWs and Mercedes and Teslas of the world is they'll go to sub 10.
Yeah.
So even cars are becoming, and cars are computers for all intents and purposes right now. Cars are gadgets. A very expensive kind of gadget that moves, but they are. But then again, as I wrote in the Alto review, come on, the Alto costs what? 4 times the iPhone 14 Pro Max. That's not that much more. 4 iPhone 14 Pro Maxes will get you Maruti Alto K10 that runs Apple CarPlay.
Yeah.
But
I think that's the difference. The technology has made sort of those small little things, the differentiation that you guys were discussing a moment back.
Everything is
that sort of
down.
also is followed by maybe particular kind of consumer who for whom it might be a make or break deal.
Yeah, it would probably be a make or break deal for that consumer.
But would it be a make or break deal for the government and the industry? Or do you think they'll be able to buy more time? Because 2025, as I said earlier, is still 3 years away.
Yeah, if the government just draws a line in the sand and they say that no phone without NaVIC is going to launch, then it's going to be a problem for particularly people like Apple, Google. Google is a very small player, but the mid-range Samsung phones, like anyone who is not using Qualcomm or MediaTek silicon. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think there's going to be some conversations in the background, and it's going to be like eventually we'll see NaVIC everywhere. It'll take time though.
Yeah, and Apple will probably do it. I mean,
Yeah, of course they'll do it eventually.
Every senior politician uses an iPhone.
Yeah.
So I'm sure the first iPhone 14s in India went to politicians as well. So.
And do you have any sort of last thoughts for the consumers? Should they sort of go ahead with their buying decisions? Should they pick certain sort of devices?
I mean,
because you know how segmented the market is, and these little things, because technology, it's ever changing. People do make choices based on small little things. Yeah. Do you think people should wait, or now they should be looking for a smartphone that has NaVIC, that can support NaVIC?
I mean, the only thing that a consumer needs to worry about if they really want NaVIC in their device is it should either be Qualcomm powered or a MediaTek based chip which supports 5G. In terms of real world benefit, yes, navigation will get slightly more accurate. It's not a tectonic shift, like it's not going to be a dramatic change. It's going to be a very minor change, maybe 5 to 10% better. But when you're in a sticky situation and you're trying to find a place, that 5 to 10%.
Yeah, especially considering the dependability we have, as Kushan mentioned. Yeah. Like probably this is what came to my mind. You don't trust humans these days.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
It's the technology that takes the precedence.
I want to ask you a question. Can I, on a Qualcomm device, any Snapdragon device, choose which, constellation?
No, that's, I mean,
is
like,
that automatic?
Like on Android phones, you can kind of root them and then you can get super nerdy with them. Then you can do all of these things.
You can root them, but as a regular Joe.
No, you can't. It's going to be automated. And it will automatically gravitate towards the closest satellite. So you can do that. It's going to be if you're buying a high-end Xiaomi phone, Vivo, Oppo, you're going to probably have NaVIC already, even the lower end models. And a high-end Samsung, say S22 or the new Fold phones and all, you will get NaVIC on them. The iPhone 14 will not have NaVIC. And then the Google Pixel 7 is launching, I think, next week. That will also not probably have NaVIC. We don't know exactly, but because it's coming with a new chip, so I don't know if Google will bake that in, but my best guess would be it won't have NaVIC.
Well, then it's still an evolving situation. And with that, we come to an end of this edition of The Print Dashboard. Thank you for watching.